Hello, everybody. Welcome to a special edition of Roundtable. I'm your host, Heyang. I am in Shanghai. Today, we plow through the fields of creativity and engage in a conversation that is at the intersection of art and urban farming. And please join me on this journey to uncover the balance between the concrete jungle and a green oasis. Our journey starts at the rooftop garden at NYU Shanghai, and to give us a grand tour is somebody special. He is the mastermind of this project, half-time gardener, full-time assistant art professor of interactive media arts at NYU Shanghai, Andy Garcia.
Thank you for the introduction. So welcome to our garden. This has been a community effort from students, faculty, and staff. And let me show you around and let me show what we've been planting so far and what's growing.
This is fantastic because, Andy, look at all this stuff. It's all green and you've got some lovely little objects dangling from the plants, and I know nothing about any of this stuff, but you have said that this is the plant that we must start with. And I don't even know what this is. What is this?
So this is a cauliflower.
Cauliflower?
And, these have been planted by students, and you can see they are kind of sprouting.
Oh.
So it means we'll be able to harvest them soon, hopefully by the end of November.
All right.
We can eat them.
Okay,
So,
hold on a second.
yeah.
Let's give this baby cauliflower some spotlight because
Right.
it is cute, it is tiny, but you're expecting it to be as big as what we see in supermarkets?
Oh, hopefully. Well, that's my hope. And we'll see how large it can grow.
It can grow,
Mm.
yes. Okay, so that's a cauliflower. I had
Yes.
no idea that it grows from the soil this way, and it's like hidden in the middle of a whole bunch of big leaves.
Yeah.
And this is what it is.
Every day it's a new learning experience in the garden and learning how our food grows.
Yeah.
It's very fascinating. And yeah, I think that's one of the purpose, that reconnecting to nature and reconnecting with the food we grow, and just be aware of that.
Yes. And also, Andy, sorry to stop you there. I see these are tomatoes and I see eggplants dangling from the vine. And this I can recognize, but I have not seen them in real life, as in like on the vine. So let's have a look here. And the tomatoes seem like they still need a little bit more time to
Correct.
ripen, right? But there's
Yes.
one pretty red here.
Yeah, those I think are gonna be ready in a week or so.
Ah.
And we have another species of
Yeah.
cherry tomato, black cherry tomato, also be ready soon. We're really happy how those have been growing, and we've been super happy with
Oh.
the eggplant.
Ta-da!
which,
Here comes the
we already
eggplant.
did many eggplant harvests. The first harvest we've had 10 to 15 eggplants,
Ah.
and we cook them on our campus for students. We just fry them in a pan and
Uh-huh.
let people have a taste.
Okay.
So yeah, this eggplant has been a winner in this garden.
Right, so this is the champion of the garden. Okay. Question though, did you use fertilizer?
We use a little bit organic fertilizer.
Oh, you did?
Mm.
Okay, so,
Yes.
but that's supposed to be healthy and everything?
Yeah, that's correct.
Awesome.
Yeah,
And
it's basically compost.
okay.
Yeah.
Well, without fertilizer, because you're talking to someone who is a laywoman who knows nothing about this, would you be able to receive such abundance and harvest?
Alright, so fertilizer helps to have larger and more vegetables.
Yeah.
So you could not use them at all, or not fertilizer at all, and maybe you'll have just a few less eggplants.
All right. Okay. And I see there's more than a few of eggplants you have here. Andy, if I may, without being too imposing, would I be able to take a little souvenir home?
Let me have a look. Yeah, I think we have a few already. We can harvest right now if you want.
Okay, that would be wonderful.
Okay.
Thank you for being so generous.
All right.
So how do we do this?
I just
You're picking up this
just pick
huge
this one
scissor, pairs of
looks like
scissors.
can be eaten already.
All right,
and-
so I'm going to carry that.
Right, and I just chop it.
Yep.
And there you go. It's yours. You
It's
can
mine?
cook it the way you want.
Lovely.
Yeah.
I'm putting it in my pocket. Lovely. I'm taking this from Shanghai, NYU Shanghai. Thank you very much. And this is, okay, let me just hold it then. Yeah. All right. And also, Andy, we see that there is this machine, which I am very curious about.
Let's have a look.
Yes, let's have a look. And I am wondering if this has something to do with solar panels.
That's correct. So that's a solar panel that is powering a bunch of sensors. Is in essence is a weather station.
A weather station.
The reason we have it here is because we want to understand what's the local weather in this particular rooftop. So it's an hyper-local weather station to understand like what's the temperature, what's the humidity, are there a lot of winds, how much does it rain here, and so that can give us information on how to better grow plants on our farm.
So this all goes down to a computer?
Correct.
Yeah.
So we collect the information, the data, and we can look at it through months or years and see which year had which weather and how those impacted our harvest, for example.
All right. So what I see here is one solar panel that is connected to this machine thing, which is spinning as the wind blows. This has something to do with the wind, right?
Correct. So this is for the wind speed. That sensor is for the wind direction. That's our water collection system.
Water collection.
Rains. And there's another few sensors that we cannot see that they measure the temperature and humidity.
Awesome. So you've got this cool machine here, and we've only given you information on a fraction of all the different types of plants and vegetables you have here. And I can't help but wonder that a little bit further away at the edge of the garden, I see this black machine, a huge object that I think belongs in the bat cave. So what is this, Andy?
So this is a compost bin, and when we harvest some of our plants, we have a lot of green leftovers or the leaves that we don't eat, and those are like have a lot of nutrients in them. Basically, we can introduce them inside the bin.
Oh, you're opening up the thing, and is it gonna smell?
It doesn't smell.
Not
we're very
bad at all.
careful what we introduce inside. So just like greens and dead leaves, and it's in what we're trying to do is replenish, compost those leaves, and later we want to replenish the soil back with nutrients. So we can have our soil can be rich again, and we can have another harvest equally as good as the year before.
So this becomes the fertilizer that you use to plant the eggplants and all the other goodies you have here.
That's right.
Yeah,
So
that's wonderful.
In a way, it's kind of a closed cycle.
Yes, the circle of life.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Well, thank you so much for introducing me to all of this, marvels of nature, and on the rooftop of such a renowned university, NYU Shanghai. And we are going to migrate downstairs and have more of a deeper discussion about urban farming and all the good stuff that comes with that. So see you downstairs.
Thank you.
Hey guys, we're now right smack dab in the middle of the courtyard in NYU Shanghai. And here we are going to have an interesting discussion about urban farming, art, and so much more. So today I'm joined, or at least for this part, I am joined by, here's our very own Yushun. Yushun, you've been exploring NYU Shanghai for quite some time actually, and you've been shooting videos, and do check them out in the coming weeks. So are you ready to talk about farming and all the great stuff that comes about that with the urban setting?
Especially under this comfortable environment.
Yes, we can stretch your legs if you want. Yes, and also let's bring the guests on. Assistant Professor Andy Garcia, who you just met, and thank you so much for taking us on that trip and tour.
My pleasure.
On the rooftop. So wonderful to have you with us. And also Anna Greenspan, Associate Professor of Contemporary Global Media at NYU Shanghai. Welcome to Roundtable.
Thank you.
It's wonderful to have this lineup. So together we will unravel the canvas of sustainable farming, urban farming, as well as art, and maybe we'll throw in a little bit of the background of CIIE in all of this. So yes, let's go to Andy first, because that was such a wonderful and cozy little trip we had at the rooftop garden. And what's prompted you to get involved with something like this? And has it been something you've always wanted to start? Get your hands dirty, so to speak?
So actually at NYU Shanghai, we've been doing urban farming for quite some time. So I'm just taking on that legacy. On our previous campus, we had a small plot of land where students, faculty, and staff, they grow some vegetables. And so now in this new campus on the 7th floor rooftop, we had this opportunity to make things bigger and larger. And the aim, this small experiment that we're running at the moment, was really to engage everyone in our community to come and have a hands-on activity, put their hands in the soil, grow things, reconnect with nature, reconnect with the food we eat, spend some time outdoors, make new connections, and really enjoy the outdoors, because we spend so much time in front of our screens indoors. So it's just a really nice activity to do. And of course, these activities, they later lead towards larger discussions around urban farming, such as food security, like food production in the view of climate change, or in the view of like global crises and conflicts. We can also talk about food ethics and how our decisions on what we eat every day, can have an impact on subjects like this. So we start very simple with a light-hearted activity, but these open the conversation to broader subjects of conversation.
Yes, and the pandemic has changed our ideas and perceptions towards urban farming. Also, just having these little pots of greenery in your own apartment and on your balcony as such. So I think it's really wonderful that people are getting involved more and wanting to know more about what goes into the plates of your food and all of that. Anna, has the pandemic changed your view on having your little urban garden as such? And also I know for a fact that you're involved with projects of community gardens, as well as the Shanghai Huiyuan project. And tell us a bit more about your considerations when it comes to these urban projects as such.
I think that it was very clear in the pandemic that having plant life around one was good for well-being. And I think that this is part of the underlying motivations for our project here. There's a sense that what it is to be a university is, what is it to make a campus, right? It's not just a building, and it's not just a building with outdoor landscape, right? That there's something about the environment that you're in that actually shapes the kind of thinking that you can do, right? So when we are trying to promote this project, we say, they're called the Ivy Leagues for a reason. It's because there's ivy growing out, right? So this sense of life outside the space of the classroom is really crucial for how we can think and create together. And I think this is what everyone felt in their own homes when we were stuck and locked inside. And we realized that if you have an environment that has life in it, that really also serves one's own well-being and one's own sense of peace and creativity and thought and these things. So this is why we feel it's really essential part of the university, right?
Yeah. And I can still remember that back then when everybody is staying at home and people are even, because we didn't have that much of soil at home, right? So people are even starting planting little greeneries, probably not even for looking at the view, and they will just plant these things through water. Yeah, that kind of thing is quite.
Yeah, that's actually an interesting project that we've experimented with. I mean, part of that maybe we can talk about is, we're interested in innovative ways to do urban gardening, and so there's this whole field of hydroponics, right? Of growing things just with water. So we've experimented with that, but I think that you're right that it's very important for many reasons just to have life around us, to have plants around us, right? And to be able to touch them and smell them and just have something growing, so you're not in a totally sterile environment, and that changes one's perspective.
And that's why I think this project, the whole rooftop gardening project, is very fascinating, because students can actually get some first-hand experience of, doing these things.
Yeah, I think that, maybe Andy can speak to this, but I think, even though we're very into it, we've been slightly surprised at how enthusiastic.
The first event we did was like a fall planting event. We had 50 people come on a rooftop, ready to engage, plant whichever seeds we had on hand, pipe up the irrigation system. So many our students there and faculty and all the community just wanted to be there. 50 people that we promoted just fairly, and we had a great response. We could see directly like how much demand for these type of activities there is, and it's just like a simple activity that gives you back so much, and we can create new connections also through the garden. So it's a space that we want to be alive, to create connection, conversations, and bring in different type of events, research, different faculties, research, different. It's a place of connection with nature, but also with the rest of the community.
And I think that's probably the best part of it, because once you have a project that can have this kind of reach, and then when there's, the exchange of humanity, and I think it just brings it all up to a different level. And to see so many staff and students to enjoy a project like this, and also to have almost a community effect of it, then that's really beautiful, as well as really green. And I think these days people are obsessed about the idea of sustainability. And see, this rooftop garden / farm idea isn't necessarily new, but why do you think it's not really taken hold like maybe what people would like to see? It's like when I'm traveling in Europe, for example, I've seen numerous buildings with green rooftops, if not green facades as well, with vegetation. Admittedly, not all of these places are growing yields for harvest, but having these plants on buildings, and that's been seen as a pretty conventional way of just making our cities a little bit more environmental friendly and as such. Why do you think that this has not taken hold in China and also around the world like we would have wanted to see it happen, like spreading like fire? Because that's certainly not happened.
Yeah, I think it's, in some ways it's new, right? So it depends on a city space, and different urban structures have different modes of urban gardening. For example, in England, right, there's a pretty old system of allotments where this is like an area in a neighborhood is set aside. This isn't on a rooftop. I'm not talking about on a rooftop. I'm talking about like a particular area set aside, and people have allotments that they garden, so that there's a kind of culture of that there. To create something on a roof or a balcony obviously requires a certain amount of engineering, right? Like you have to think about drainage, you have to think about water, you have to think about the heaviness of the soil and these sorts of issues. So I think in some ways, like it is the future, right? It's especially in very dense cities like Shanghai, right? There's a great opportunity to use balconies and rooftops in this way, and so what we're hoping with this space that we create here, that it kind of acts like a bit of a showcase or model for the types of things that can happen on a rooftop, right? And how, we want to do lots of research and also sort of model some of this, because definitely it's not, you have to create a structure so that this will work. And it won't, but it's like it's kind of wasted space to not have it much more pervasive.
If you think about it, like as a trend, we're having larger and larger and bigger urbanizations worldwide. So
Right.
it's a fact. Most people nowadays live in cities. Cities are gonna just get bigger and bigger, and so it's just like gonna be more and more a trend or a factor to include some of these green spaces in whichever area we can. And of course, one of the easiest spots we can introduce is and use rooftops. So I think at some point these will catch up. Will catch up with this generation, maybe the future generation. At some point when cities are massive, we're too disconnected from nature, we'll want to reintroduce it in some shape or form.
Yeah, and I call this an advantage that Shanghai people can enjoy, because in Beijing, where I'm from, the winters are just so cold. And also, one of the reasons why these wonderful projects don't spread around as much as we would like to see is that sometimes scalability is just difficult to go around. And
Yeah, I think though it's very important to experiment, to do lots of experiments with this in various types of ways, right? And to see what works and what doesn't work. And there are a lot of experiments, I'm sure, also in Beijing. I'm obviously more familiar with what's going on around here, but there are lots of attempts at experiments, and there's a lot of also ground up experiments of people that just kind of want to grow stuff in any areas that they can, right? So I think that it doesn't necessarily have to be a kind of grand vision that takes on, it can kind of start from these small experiments, and then we can see, what works, what doesn't work, that kind of thing, right?
Yes.
Yeah, because urban farming, this idea, if we're talking about it, it's probably kind of a new or niche, but actually when we're thinking about the habit of Chinese people will like to do a little bit gardening, right? They do this like all the time, right?
Well,
I mean, I actually think that if I can say that when I came to Shanghai in the early 2000s, you had a more experience of people that were just urbanized, who were coming from the countryside. And you would see a lot more people just growing, like, whatever, under a bridge or along a riverbank or whatever. People
in the front yard.
People in the front yard. Like, so I think there is a great desire of people to do this,
Right.
and a great, people recognize the advantage of it, and,
well, it's interesting you brought that up, because for Chinese people, also sometimes we do have self-deprecating humor. The observation is that Chinese people like to grow produce.
right.
You don't grow plants.
Right.
It's for the food
Yeah.
that you're putting the effort in. It's not for, oh, that's pleasing to the eye.
Yeah.
So at least traditionally, that
Right.
wasn't really the way people look at stuff. And also for, this is showing my naivete, and partially of it is just intentional, I suppose. Like when Andy took me to take a look at the garden, I had no idea of any of that stuff.
Yeah.
I had to like look at, oh, there's a ripened eggplant. Okay, so that must be, you know, what grows that, what it grows out from. So it's like, I think there's a whole generation of Chinese kids who are completely disconnected from the food or that we eat and from nature, because that's just not what we're used to, not what you grew up with.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I fell into that category completely. I mean, before even getting my hands on, I also was quite clueless. I mean, one of the aims was also to learn and share the learning, and also understand better the food production system, food nutrition, and this. So one of the aspects that we recognize about urban farming is, okay, we produce food, but there's also other advantages that are beyond food. Is a bit of a therapeutic aspect to it. Like, you're there, you're present, you're doing something careful, you're observing if the plant is growing well, you're observing the smell of it, and also that helps you to reconnect to nature, and also understand better the nutrition. And just because now I spend more time in the garden, we have a weekly meetup, and we harvest a cucumber, a radish, or an eggplant, and they taste so good, and it leads me to eat more whole food, more greens. I mean, if you think about it, in the city we eat a lot of processed food. There's a lot of delicious food, but maybe not, we don't get our fair share of green vegetables and whole foods, fresh harvested. So even though I'm not gonna feed myself or feed the community with this garden, I'm just creating that habit of appreciation with this food, and that will lead me perhaps to make better decisions when I'm in the grocery store and things like that.
I think you're really right. I mean, this is part of the trend, I think, of urban garden, right? So if we ask our students, and if I ask the students in a class, how many of your grandparents were farmers? Many of them will say yes, right? But then there's been this process of, like you say, a kind of greater and greater disconnect. So now, if I ask my students, like, where do you shop? Most of them are like, on my phone. And so they'll just look at a picture of a tomato. And for me, that's already kind of weird. Like, don't you want to look at the actual tomato don't you want to smell it or see, like, that's the choice, you know, that you've chosen that tomato? But they're like, no, I trust him, whatever, right? And they just, click their phone. And so the disconnect is growing. And so I think it's really incredible when you take people that have lost that connection and get them to, like, just pick something for yourself. Just pick something.
Yeah.
It's like really, like, there's a lot of visceral pleasure and a sense of reconnection that happens very, very easily. Like, with not much effort, right? Yeah.
Well, it's more than that, I would think, of an effort, because Annie described it's almost like looking after, should I say, a little baby? Is that a fair comparison? In taking care of your baby cauliflower and your tomato and radishes, and to see it ripen and eat it.
Yeah.
Or give it to me.
There is, I mean, and everyone has been asking for they come to garden, they see a cucumber is ready to harvest, and they're like, can I harvest? Yeah, go for it. Just eat it.
You're a generous man.
And so it's been great. There's been so much positive feedback from the garden in just this small experiment that we've been doing. We cannot wait to have our large garden where we can explore with native species like trees, like medicinal plants. We want to incorporate all sorts of fruit trees and really expand what we can do up there, and think about ecology as something that can connect us to nature.
Yeah, I can fully understand because Andy mentioned that that's probably a therapeutic process of growing these plants, right? And even I remember I grew a little bit of carrots at my home. I didn't want it to grow an actual carrot, but I just seeing the leaves growing longer and then taller. The whole process is very, I think, comforting and therapeutic.
Yeah, and that's something a lot of people picked up, that growing your own plant or produce is really good for mental health.
Yes.
And that's something that we're paying more and more attention to. And also, you mentioned something so interesting about being able to taste your own fruit of love, and that's so fresh. And with a lot of the vegetables that we shop at supermarkets, they don't taste so juicy, or they don't have that really awesome flavor that they used to have. And some people attribute that to all these vegetables that are industrialized and produced in that fashion. And
I think this is like one of the things we really want to research, right?
Mhm.
Like, so in our little bits of research so far, we have tried hydroponics, and right, so there's these questions about, like, for example, what types of soil, right? Like, if you talk to gardeners, right, they really talk a lot about soil. And so our vision for this, in its full manifestation, is really as a research garden. So, like, you can ask these kinds of questions, right? Like, what happens with different qualities of soil, and how does that affect something like taste, right? Like, we talk, in wine culture, whatever, they talk about the terroir, right? The way that the soil actually affects the taste of something. So we were really interested in trying, like, my own experiment with hydroponics, but maybe that was because this was just a one experiment. We have to do more. Was that the taste wasn't that good?
Yeah.
And that you really need the richness of soil to this is obviously part of the reason that Shanghai is so fertile, right? Is because it has this very, very fertile soil. So we're very interested in thinking about that and doing experiments and researching that.
Yeah, and also I read an article about hydroponic and aeroponic growth methods being touted at the China International Import Expo as well, because a lot of new technology is being shown there, and with agriculture is a big part of it. Also, with this growing interest in sustainable farming and what humans can do to feed this growing population without exploiting or depleting the resources of our planet.
Yeah.
And
So we're both part of this program in interactive media arts. So we're interested in how new technologies, emerging technologies, can interface with these sorts of things. So we're really interested in all sorts of experiments. Andy will talk in a moment about some of the ways that you can use different sensors, you can use different AI systems. Like, I'm really amazed, I have to say, just at these apps that are available now and identifying things. So there's we're very much interested in challenging idea that there's like nature on one side and culture and technology on another side, right? We're really interested in thinking about how these things interact, and our project is really about experimenting with all sorts of new technologies.
So in my course and my research, I like to introduce a lot of technology and I combine it with urban farming. So I come from a design and technology background, and I have my interest on learning about how food systems works. And so when combining both of them, we work on projects that are like hydroponics, controlled environment systems. How can I grow something the most efficiently possible? So I can, in a hydroponic system, I can use less water, for instance, than traditional culture. So it really speaks to, it's been a quest to seeing how we can produce food more efficiently for the whole population. Because right now, traditional farming, has been amazing, has fed the whole population at the detriment of soil quality, big monocultures, sterilization of the soil, and it's like, well, we cannot continue. That there are some challenges need to be addressed. Well, um, vertical farming or hydroponics are a part of that solution, I believe. They for sure not by their own. They're not the magic pill. They will not solve all the problems. They probably will be just a fraction of solving that problem. But in the face of global warming and changing weather patterns, all the farmlands around the world gonna be more exposed, and so this is gonna impact food production in a way or another. So I think, in a way or another, controlling the environment where we grow food is gonna be something that we have to do more and more.
Yeah, and absolutely, agriculture and technology is kind of a getting people's attention in recent years, and it can totally reflect it from the situation of CIIE, because I looked up something about this international event. So this year, there are so many international companies and organizations from agricultural industry to actually participate in this international event. I think with over 1,000 international companies and organizations from more than 100 countries and regions, that's the number. And within this food and agricultural products exhibition area, there is a actually specialized area for crop seed industry, where some international companies and organizations, of course, such as Bayer and the U.S. Grains Council, gather to actually share their experience, to exchange ideas, and to finally develop the whole industry of agriculture. And also, of course, we know that there are some very many forums during the whole CIE session, right? So all of these things are making this, I think, platform a very international and professional platform for the development of agriculture industry.
Certainly having a platform that can get everybody together from different countries and to exchange ideas and have a place where you can exchange. Some of the ideas might still be in its nascent stage, or the product isn't all that mature, but sort of being able to speak with your peers and see what everybody else is doing. Let's say what's going on in Spain when it comes to urban farming as such, and then I think it's just a great opportunity for the business ventures as well as for those who are sort of looking for new ideas for research projects and growing industries as such. And also, I can't help but think of this place we're at, NYU Shanghai. This is one of those emblematic places of international exchange and this wonderful international and open atmosphere that we're feeling here. And to see this urban farm / garden to take root here, this is definitely one of the wonderful discoveries we've made on our trip here in Shanghai this time. And also, we talked so much about agriculture, about of course the importance of it, but it might take people by surprise that traditional agriculture is actually among the top 3 most polluting industries in the world. And do you think that urban farming, however we define it, or however that's being implemented in different places around the world, can it significantly lessen that impact on the environment? Or how hopeful, I guess, are you about this?
I think it's a tough question to answer. I don't think nobody has a
direct answer.
Yeah, direct answer. It is something that we need to discover as we go on. Right now, urban farming or vertical farming plays a very small role in feeding the world population. So hopefully that's something that, well, maybe we can investigate on our garden as with our students, with our researchers, botanists, ecologists. I want to bring in people together and tackle these big questions that are going to definitely be important for, well, the future of humanity. It's a bit dramatic, this, but
never. No,
yeah.
I don't think.
I think that generally speaking, right, like that, we're interested in sort of small scale experiments, right? how can we think about small scale experiments and actually research some of these questions that, there's no, they're very, very difficult problems. And I think you're right? Like industrial agriculture is a very highly polluting source for the world. And I don't think that urban farming is a solution for feeding people, because I think one of the things that you discover when you're doing this is that, like, growing one tomato plant is actually quite a bit of work, and so you might get frustrated because, like, you can just go down to the market and buy a tomato, right? And it's sort of, so I think that urban farming and urban gardening has all these other effects to do with people's well-being, to do with people's, like, connections, to do with the non-human, or some people say, like, the more than human communities that make up our cities, and fostering those. So it's not just about food production. I think it's important that we don't just look at it as like, is this gonna serve our food needs, like our human food needs? It's rather like, maybe we need to reorient our modes of being on this planet, and thinking about our urban environments as a place that, butterflies and bees and worms and plants, and along with different sensing agents, like different types of artificial intelligences, and all sorts of other than human intelligence can kind of coexist. So we're interested in experimenting with that.
And also, I think that depends on the situation of different cities, because for example, Singapore, they developing a lot on urban farming. I would say they probably, because they import basically, according to what I researched, they import basically 90% of their nutritional needs, right? And they are developing urban farming for this kind of reason, because they would like to increase the efficiency of land use. And in that case, probably urban farming is for maybe food needs, but in other side of the story, maybe another kind of psychological needs can be satisfied by our urban farming, I think.
So we're really interested. Our project is a research project, and as we are NYU Shanghai, we're a global network university. So we're really interested in thinking about gardens in a global context. So exactly like, Singapore is a very good example, right? There's like really good, interesting examples of course, a long, deep tradition of gardens, philosophical types of gardens in Japan, for example. We're interested in connecting with, NYU has a site in Florence, right, where there's the Renaissance Garden, right? So we're really interested in looking at gardens around the world, and thinking about sort of lessons and ideas and inspirations from these other sites. And exactly like, of course, it really depends on the conditions, the climate, the soil of that particular place, right? And also the cultural history of that particular place, right?
Yeah, and also with the Zhanghe Huiyuan, my Shanghainese is obviously not up to snuff, but it's really interesting that you deliberately kept the Shanghai dialect in the title of this place. And so I would assume you probably wanted to be very authentically Shanghai or something like that.
So inspired by this project of Eric Sanderson, we're really interested in looking at and exploring and understanding the natural history of Shanghai, the ecological history of Shanghai, its waterways, its soil, its plants, its animals. I think there were tigers in Shanghai.
Wow.
Right? So we're not interested in bringing back tigers in the city, maybe. But the point of looking at the history is to help reimagine the future, right? To help to look at the ecological history of Shanghai in order to reimagine the future. That's really what the project is about. And the garden that we want to manifest is a platform for this research.
Right, and also I read in your event brochure that you're keeping the idea of converging the East and West philosophies together in the design of this project. And I'm curious, how do these two come together in a harmonious way? And when we talk about harmony, that's possibly very oriental or whatever it is. So what do you say to that?
I mean, we're very interested in looking at the philosophical and cultural and artistic history of garden culture in various places, right? So, and if you start looking, it's very, very rich. Of course, around here, as we were saying, right? Like, of course, we have the Jiangnan garden and the scholar garden traditions, right? Which are very, very rich in terms of literature and painting and the gardens themselves, of course. And then also we're working closely, for example, with NYU Florence, where they have this cultural history of the Renaissance garden. And it's interesting to look at how the different features of a garden, right? Like plants, water, stone, earth, how these different materialities are expressed in these different cultural traditions. So I think we're very well placed to think deeply about these different philosophical and artistic and cultural traditions and think about how they can be exchanged and sort of manifest in certain kind of exchange in like the Shanghai of 21st century. Do you want to add anything to that?
I think I want to add related to our garden, the Shanghai garden, that what you saw before is just an empty slab, but because this is an ongoing project, this is not what if the viewers see our filming before. This is just a small scale exploration of what will be a larger garden. I just want to emphasize that that it's a ongoing project. It's gonna be developed. There's gonna be water features, rock features. There's gonna be large trees.
We have a design, a beautiful design, and we are just in the process. So I don't know. Hopefully, maybe like by next year, the full garden will be there, and we'll also have space for outdoor activities and space for research labs. So this is just an initial experiment. We have the space. We just moved into this campus, so this is like the beginning phase, and the manifestation of it hopefully will happen in the next, hopefully in the next year.
Yeah, and also both of you are professors of arts and of media. Do you think that there's maybe something unique for you to offer, having this background in arts, to add to this discussion of urban farming and agriculture?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's very clear from this place that if you go to a garden in Suzhou, right, it's very clear that there's not the line between art and gardens are, that there's an aesthetics that is being offered. So that's something that we're very interested in. And we're also, I think, on the other side, because we're interested in media arts, there's a lot of contemporary artists that are working with plants, or there's a lot of research now on plant intelligence, for example, and things like that. So we're interested in sort of both sides of that. And one of the projects that one of our colleagues is working on is like to grow different types of materials and different types of pigmentation, and so there's all sorts of ways in which the arts, broadly speaking, converge with the
And
garden.
nature is always such a great source of inspiration. I mean, there's so much. Mother Nature have done everything, and every time we thought we invent something great, nature did it 10 times better. And so there is such a great things to learn. And well, in media arts, we all like to combine it with technology and see how that looks like and how can we, play with it and make interesting projects. I mean, a lot of our students, we talk about farming, but last semester we have a student work with mushroom, cultivating mycelium, understanding mycelium as a living organism and how it can, compare or what.
Yeah.
I don't know exactly I forget the details, but it was very interesting to see that relationship with the natural world and media.
I think it's also interesting if you look at this issue about plant intelligence, something that we're quite interested in, right? That's kind of cutting edge research. A lot of it has to do with the types of photography we now can. So one of the things is that plants and operate in a different sort of time frame than we do, right? So often we can't really see them grow, and we can't see. But if you see slow motion or stopgap photography of plants, then you can see how it is that they operate, and that their mode of sensing in the world becomes clearer. So technologies and artistic engagements really is very revealing in that way.
Yes, absolutely. And what a wonderful discussion we've had with the Harvest of Knowledge and Inspiration. We come to the end of today's show, and we would like to leave you with the seeds of change through urban gardening to a green city. And my heartfelt thanks to our wonderful guests, Andy Garcia, Assistant Art Professor of Interactive Media Arts of NYU Shanghai, and Anna Greenspan, Associate Professor of Contemporary Global Media at NYU Shanghai, and of course our very own Shun for all the wonderful insights that you guys have shared with us. And for listeners out there, please remember that the cityscape is your campus, and go out there and paint it green. I'm Heyang. Until next time, bye for now.